Big 10 Plus 4 is a member of OddPods Media and ASAP All Sports All Plays Network.
What is going on? How did you match me that quick? Okay, behind the scenes here as we welcome everybody into Big 10 Plus 4. So we just hit the opening music. Sam and I were talking before we hit live, and then I throw this bucket hat on in my shades because it is a hot one. Summer is back, and Sam somehow, not knowing any of this, found a hamburger hat to throw on his head in the meantime.
It's a cheeseburger hat.
Oh, thank you. That's an important clarification. Thank you.
For those lactose intolerant people, you can't stand me right now.
Where was that just laying around that was ready?
You know me, right? I mean, you know that my demeanor. I've got this in my office, just sitting on top of my little fridge, and I'm like, I saw you as the music was playing. I saw you put it on. I'm like, oh, I just reached around and grabbed it. Yeah.
That's I want folks to understand. Sam had about a 20-second window to somehow match the hat, and he did. So wow, I concede on that one. But I'll tell you what, summer is back. It is 80-some degrees. We're going hats off now. Okay, I'm going to match you now.
I am because my headphones don't fit on my head, or I have to hold them on. So you can keep yours on. I'm just not gonna right at this time unless I have a ball cap on. I can't wear hats very well. It takes the effect away.
Yeah. Oh shoot! But regardless, we are halfway through May. For some of the Big Ten spring sports, it's things are zooming by quickly.
Where's the time go?
Big Ten spring sports, golf is getting into postseason, track and field postseason. Softball's in the middle of the Big Ten softball tournament, which is being played in East Lansing this year.
The whole
Big
thing
Ten
is
baseball.
in East Lansing.
Yes, correct.
Oh,
the whole thing. And that's the first time ever that Michigan State's gotten to host it. And I tell you what, I know I have allegiances and interests in Michigan State, but Michigan State did it right. It is a fun place to be. So two games today, the semifinals today, one at 2:00, Nebraska and Ohio State, and then Northwestern and Michigan will play after. And then Big Ten baseball still got 2 weekends left of regular season. I didn't know if Sam, you wanted to jump there with baseball or softball, but then you end up getting coffee.
Thank you.
Timing.
That was I didn't think anything of it. I thought you still had a couple more sentences in you. This is going really well this morning. I like it.
And I'll drink coffee there at the same time. So, but regardless, so spring sports are really ramping up. We'll have some different things to maybe encapsulate and cover. Next week, we'll have a softball tourney champ we can talk a little bit about, so on and so forth. But as always at Big 10 Plus 4, which, by the way, if you're new to the program,
shame
as
on you.
Sam would say, shame on you.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we're still lending out the hand. We're college sports with a Midwest perspective, blue collar and blue blood. And so as we get ready for all of the offseason stuff, Sam actually came across a post on Twitter that we wanted to dive into a little bit. Kind of going through Big Ten football and projecting for the next season. And I kind of like this idea a little bit better than just trying to tack on a record right now.
Right.
But why don't you go ahead and walk us through?
Well, I forgot that I needed to pull up the picture with it. So give me one quick second.
Well,
great podcasting and television, isn't it?
Let me go ahead and filibuster in the meantime. So basically, instead of just nailing the record down, trying to project what the upcoming year will be, what this group did at 24/7 Sports, they measured the ceiling and the basement for each team. Yeah. So your best case scenario, your worst case scenario going into the season. And I have the picture. Do you have the picture, Sam?
I have it pulled up now. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you start running us through the teams?
Yeah. So it goes through what, like Dalton just said, it gives you the list of in order of their best.
Mm-hmm.
So like, Ohio State is their best could be a 12-0, but they go into the consideration of, well, they could be at worst 9-3. So that's what we're looking at with Ohio State. And
not to split hairs, I would say worst might be 10-2. I just don't see how they lose 3.
Yeah. 3's awful hard. I to say that, okay, I could see them losing, but that, okay, no, I don't know.
And like with the 3, you're banking on a Notre Dame team and with Marcus Freeman taking over to be able to knock off Ohio State in the first game of the year. I'm not sure I quite see that.
Right. If you do, watch out for Notre Dame.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be Notre Dame is going to be horrible, and I'm sorry to go off target here.
No.
I like going on tangents, so
this is what podcasts are for.
That's right. I think Notre Dame is going to be good. I like Marcus Freeman as a head coach, so I think they're going to be good. I just don't know that they're going to stack up to an already kind of veteran Ohio State team.
Yep,
and it's a tall order, and if they pull it off, I would say honestly, yes. After 1 week, Notre Dame is kind of in that strong mix for the Final Four.
Yeah,
the playoff.
I think you're right, and I also think Notre Dame will be good. I just think it is going against history and going against the numbers to just ride everything on a first-year head coach. So, like the common sense tells you first-year head coaches aren't going to the playoffs and doing those types of things. So,
I think a great first season for him, Freeman, would be, 9-3, 8-4 would be a really strong first season at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still pretty darn good. I mean,
that's the worst case scenario for Ohio State.
Yeah, and we've got what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Big Ten teams that their best case scenario is lower than 9-3. I mean, and 8-4. So I mean, Notre Dame's going to be pretty good. If they beat Ohio State, watch out for them. Good Lord,
I'd agree.
But then you have Michigan, best case scenario 11-1. I'm assuming they assume that the best case scenario they're still losing to Ohio State
or Michigan State like last year.
Oh, well, that could be because Michigan State's they've got a best case scenario of 10-2, so that's pretty. Keep Paul Bunyan.
He's up there for a reason.
So Michigan State's projected at 10-2 as their best case scenario, but they could be 7-5. Is that a viable best case, worst case for you?
Well, if you don't mind, before we turn attention to that, let's finish out Michigan. You said 11-1 best case, but worst case
9-3.
See, this is, and we'll get to Michigan State in a moment, but this is what was interesting to me because for Michigan, you have a team that loses your 2 best pass rushers in quite some time, and Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. You lose Josh Ross as a linebacker. You lose Daxton Hill, a first-round pick as a safety. Offensively, you lose Hassan Haskins, and you also lose a lot of your coordinators. So I'm not sure that 9-3 is the absolute basement. I wouldn't put it much further than that. I just think if I was going to mock this up, I think that's how I would draw it, just because there's so many more unknowns. There's a lot of question marks. It's not just because Michigan State interest, whatever. It's just that's a lot of pieces you're talking about. You're talking about if Ojabo was healthy going into the NFL draft, you're talking about taking 3 first-rounders off that defense from a year ago. That's hard for anybody to replace. So I just think there's a lot of question marks. And of course, Cade McNamara at quarterback. I thought Cade did a fine job. There's a section of Michigan fans that would rather see McCarthy at quarterback. I don't know how some of that drama maybe conflicts things. I don't know how drama of Jim Harbaugh being rumored and reported that he was ready to take the Vikings job and he decides to come back. Like, that's just a lot of question marks.
I want to piggyback off of the Jim Harbaugh and the Vikings. Here's if a big position opens up in the NFL in the middle of the season, doesn't happen often, but occasionally they'll fire somebody and interim coach. A big job comes up in let's say November, early November, mid-November even, and you're all of a sudden getting ready to go play Ohio State. And this, oh, hey, look, Jim Harbaugh would be a great fit here.
Is all the distractions start
The
coming?
distractions start pouring in, and that may be where, they drop a couple, leading into Ohio State and then Ohio State, There's a lot of question marks still for Michigan, even though I think they're going to be really, really good this year.
Yep. And that's what I wanted to say.
There are question marks.
Just to be clear, I do think it's very possible that they're around 10 wins. I see that, but my point just is when you're talking about variance and you throw that many unknowns and that many question marks in, I just think that variance should be bigger than 2 wins just because of all those factors. I think that's fair to say. It should be a bigger window because you have tight windows when you know stuff. You have big windows when you're not really sure about a lot of things. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of things not to be sure of Michigan, even though they're set up for a big year. Let's go to Michigan State, though.
Real quick, of these 2 worst case scenarios, Ohio State and Michigan, they're both worst case 9-3. I think they overshot on Ohio State. I think maybe 10-2 is worst case scenario, and they undershot with Michigan. Maybe 8-4 should be. So there should be a discrepancy between their worst case.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, of course, we're splitting hairs in the middle of May. I understand what this conversation is, but I agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. So, let's move on real quick. They say Wisconsin 11-1, best case 7-5 worst. Same with Minnesota. Penn State at 10-2, best case 7-5 worst case. Same with Michigan State. Is that a fair assessment of Michigan State?
I think so. How big's the variance? How many wins? I'm pulling it back up here.
10-2 to 7-5. So 3.
We're talking about Michigan. Michigan had a variance of only 2 wins between their ceiling and their basement, and I'm saying that's too small. 3 would probably be about right for Michigan State. And the reason I say this is we have to find out. We talk about unknowns. We have to find out what Michigan State's offense looks like without Kenneth Walker III in the backfield. And we're talking about a Michigan State team in the spring that had 7 offensive linemen and couldn't do a spring game just because the depth was so thin.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, and we had Dustin Schutte on from Saturday Tradition a couple of weeks ago, and he had said, you watched that Peach Bowl game and you said, I'm not really sure how good Michigan State's offensive line is and maybe just how miraculously great Kenneth Walker III was. You can't bank on bringing somebody in quite like him. You got a couple of different pieces that will come together. You got a transfer coming in, a couple of transfers coming in, one still to arrive at Michigan State. But that offensive line has got to take a step forward this next year. If Michigan State. Now, you still bring back Pitt. There's a lot of reasons to be still high on Michigan State. That's just my big concern. The reasons to be high, you bring back Peyton Thorne at quarterback, who had a great year last year. Actually, it was a school record year. We don't give Peyton Thorne enough credit, and maybe it's because K9 was in the backfield with him that takes spotlight. There's only room for so much spotlight, right? A potential Heisman finalist gets a lot of that. Jaden Reid, the top receiver, right? Jaden Reid, the top receiver, comes back. Of course, Jalen Naylor's gone, but you're going to see somebody here who's going to be one of the best Big Ten receivers, I think, in the conference next year, and Keon Coleman, who's going to step up. Xavier Henderson on defense comes back as the safety. So there's a lot of solids. There's a lot of go-tos. But again, to me, until we really know what the offensive line looks like and know what the rushing attack looks like, the ceiling being where that is, I understand that.
So you just put a perfect explanation to a yes answer. That's a fair assessment. And then you just absolutely nailed it.
Yep.
Well, and then you have after that, this is a big discrepancy here. Iowa 10-2, best case, 5-7, worst case.
A 5-win difference. And you know what that is, Sam? It's a lot of context of playing in the Big Ten West.
Mm-hmm.
And
you don't know what's in the West. So
correct.
It's a coin flip if they are what they think we are, in the words of Dennis Green, or it's not a coin flip and you get your doors blown off of you because some of these teams are just a lot better than what they're being projected to be.
And it's a total lack of confidence to this point from fans, not only in Iowa's offense, but in Spencer Petras, the quarterback specifically, because Iowa's defense last year was lights out. That's why Iowa was number 2 in the country at one point. But the offense, I mean, it was like watching a baseball team, and if the other team ended up scoring 2 runs on your best pitcher, you said, we're gonna have to try again tomorrow because there's no way we can get 2 runs. Like, that's what it felt like watching Iowa football last year. There's no run support. So until this offense gets going, and we'll see if Spencer Petras can kind of get that going. He's shown flashes, but it's just not consistent enough. We'll just have to see.
So basically, the variables are if that stuff happens and teams and they outperform what they're projected to be, they're going to be 10-2 potentially. Like they could be.
And again, they're in that Big Ten West.
That could get them to Indy. That could get them to Indy too.
Absolutely.
But then Nebraska, best case scenario, 9-3, 6-6. Worst case, same with Purdue.
I think it's interesting, real quick, because I know you're probably going to want to jump on the Purdue train, pun intended.
Choo-choo.
But Nebraska's basement being set at 6-6, I found interesting just because Scott Frost and this Nebraska team lost a lot of Big Ten games. I think they went 1-8 in conference last year. And all of those losses, like I think their point differential was just about even between their
I think
one
at one
win.
point it was even. Like their win outweighed all of their losses.
And it might have finished that way. I just can't remember for sure, but it's
within a touchdown.
Yeah, because they beat Northwestern in the one game, I think like 56-7. And in all their other games were such close losses. And a lot of them lost.
Losses. 8 losses.
And it balanced the same as the one win. They had Michigan down. They should have beaten Michigan. They had Michigan State down. They should have beaten Michigan State, and they gave up a punt return for Purdue a touchdown late in the fourth. Purdue. I mean, it was consistent, just letdowns. So it's interesting to me for a group that proved that they were right there with everybody else in the Big Ten last year, but just didn't finish games out. Their basement's a bowl.
Yeah, it stands to reason that they should be more seasoned and be able to finish those games and win some of those games. Now, they're still saying they're going to lose, some games, but they should be in a bowl game. That should be exciting for Nebraska fans. And yes, you're used to being in the national spotlight from the 90s and the 80s prior to that. But getting back there, if you want to get back to that point, you've got to start somewhere. So being bowl eligible should be an exciting thought for Nebraska fans right now.
And forgive me, and if there's any Nebraska fans out there listening to this right now, please tweet at me because I get confused by Nebraska fans a lot. And a lot of conversations that I've had with folks in Nebraska, they seem to have a longer leash for Scott Frost. Like, they're rather patient, which is fine.
Is it because he played there?
Maybe I'm not really sure, but
like the Jim Harbaugh problem, thing at Michigan, where they, he's one of us, so they gave him a little bit more time.
Could be, but what I get confused on is with Nebraska basketball, you had Tim Miles that took you to the 5th seed in the Big Ten, the 5th place in Big Ten basketball, and Nebraska couldn't push him out of Lincoln quick enough. And he's a great guy. He's winning. He's taking your program to solid heights. It's a program. Nebraska is the only program in the Big Ten that has yet to win an NCAA tournament game. The only program. Tim Miles
as a Big Ten team or
period.
Okay. That's okay.
But I just don't understand why Tim Miles was broomed out the door so fast. So if anybody wants to explain to me why there was such a short, tight leash with Tim Miles, but such a long leash with Scott Frost, I just would like to understand is all I'm asking for.
Yeah, well, explanations sometimes are few and far between, but and you would think that the football program would be the one that would have a little shorter leash.
Yes, that's what they're proud of. That's the Osborne way. It's so I'm very confused. Nebraska fans, please let me know.
Yeah, you're
what I'm
not.
missing there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk Purdue. Purdue 9-3 best, 6-6 worst. How do you feel, Mr. Boilermaker Sam Sprunger?
Well, if I knew their schedule, I am the worst Purdue football fan. I am, because I
get it.
Go Boilers, but yet I don't have any idea what their schedule is.
Pulling it up.
Except for I do know that they do not play Michigan, Michigan State, or Ohio State. So
wow.
I know that much. They don't play any of the three.
All right, let me run you through here.
Yeah.
You open up September 1st with Penn State on a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Then you host Indiana State, then at Syracuse, home against Florida Atlantic, and then we get really into conference, at Minnesota, at Maryland, home against Nebraska, at Wisconsin, home against Iowa, at Illinois, home against Northwestern, at Indiana. That's a favorable schedule, man.
At Wisconsin will be a tough one.
Oh, absolutely. But your crossover games,
yeah,
Indiana, Maryland, and Penn State, and not that Penn State's bad, but like you're talking about
catching them at the beginning of the season too.
Yeah, and like to your point, no Michigan, no Ohio State, no Michigan State. Like that's wow.
Yeah. So I could see, honestly, I mean, with that schedule, I mean, they're saying that they're going to lose 3 of those games. I'm assuming that's probably Penn State, Wisconsin, and maybe Minnesota?
Or maybe even Iowa. I mean,
maybe. So I honestly would say that I'm going to lean more honestly towards best case 8-4.
Okay.
Well, no, okay, no. I will keep that, but I would say if I was a betting man, I would bet more towards 8-4. I could see 9-3, I guess. Aiden O'Connell is the savior. It's do or die on him. And is he more like Drew Brees or more like Kyle Orton? I mean, and that's not me making a joke. That's me being dead serious. Mm-hmm. I was alive for both of them to play at Purdue. Okay. And like in my 20s alive. So, I mean, Drew Brees, while small in stature, he was still just, he manned the field. Kyle Orton was good, but I didn't see the command from him as much. So, and they both didn't have great rosters along with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, Vinny Sutherland, oh shoot, now that I'm wanting to name off a whole bunch of people, then I can't. But I mean, he had a lot of receivers that got a lot of records, but it was because he was throwing it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're good too, but when you've got a future Hall of Famer throwing it to you, you're going to be in good shape.
Yep.
And Kyle Orton, good, but just wasn't near. And Aiden O'Connell is, to me, he goes, they go. So if he struggles in some games, which he's shown last year that he could struggle, he could also throw the lights out. So, mm-hmm. I mean, what difference does that one extra, that off season and that age come with age, that knowledge? I hope it's 10-2 or better. Okay. But I could see 9-3 being more feasible.
Okay.
I think they beat Penn State in week 1. I think Penn State opens up vulnerable. If there's a vulnerable time, I think that is the week, for Penn State. And I think they're going to be good this year, but it's
interesting too, because you look at that schedule, and again, there's a lot of opportunities. Like for the basement to be 6-6.
Sure.
You got to. We keep talking about the unknowns heading into next year. Purdue, you're out without George Karlaftis, your first round defensive end. You're without David Bell, and of course you're now 2 years removed from Rondale Moore, and you lose Xander Horvath, an NFL draft running back out of the backfield. So there are unknowns, and I think that's why the basement sits at 6-6. But boy, that schedule lines up.
That's the basement. That's what they say the basement is. So like they're in the same boat as Nebraska. They're bowl eligible with the worst case.
I feel like I would notch it to 7-5 with that schedule.
Yeah,
even with the unknowns.
Yeah, I could see that, but I would honestly lean more towards 8-4. I just think that they're
not as basement, but the actual number it ends
as
up being.
what I think. Yeah, I honestly think they land right in the middle of that.
Okay, good enough. Real quick, because I know we are going long in the first quarter, as we always do. Yeah, this is kind of the typical way. Maryland ceiling 7-5, worst case scenario 4-8. Rutgers, this one's interesting. Best case scenario 7-5, worst case 3-9, a 6-win differential for Rutgers, and there's a lot to still figure out there in Piscataway, but they're coming off of a bowl game appearance.
Yeah.
After being 5-7, they got to go with the COVID stuff. Yeah. Northwestern, best case scenario 7-5, worst case scenario 3-9. Illinois, best case 7-5, worst case 2-10. And the team that's projected that even if everything lines up this year, they can't make a bowl game is Indiana. Indiana 5-7, best case scenario, 1-11, the worst case scenario. And I feel for IU, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I do as well at the same time as kind of smile.
Right.
You can't take that out of me because I just can't get rid of the feeling, but at the same time, yeah, because what was it, 2 years ago? They were like that people thought they were going to beat Ohio State or at least give them a run. Now,
and they got competitive late in the game.
Yeah. But like it was the 4 touchdowns that they let up in like the 6-minute time frame in the second quarter that kind of, blew the doors open on that. And then they got competitive again. They got their wits about them. But that was 2 years ago. Like last year, Cincinnati thought they had a really good game scheduled with IU, beat them, and then IU turned into what they did last year. Wow, what a turnaround. Yep. And it wasn't a huge roster turnover that made them into what they were last year.
And there were quite a few injuries. I mean, like if we're being honest, Penix got hurt. Yep. I think McFadden was hurt. I mean, they had a lot of injuries. And the reason why it really bums me out is because when you're looking at coaches in the Big Ten, one of my absolute favorites is Tom Allen. I mean, he's an Indiana guy through and through. Was a head coach at Ben Davis, found his way up, and this is his dream job. Like, not many folks have IU football as their destination job. For Tom Allen, this is the top of the top. He wants to make it something special. He leads with so much character and faith. I mean, he's the guy I would have killed to play for Tom Allen.
Yeah. And do you think that makes him pot committed in Bloomington to where there's nobody that could come and try to steal him?
Well, part of it right now is it's a different conversation than 2 years ago.
Sure, but what I'm saying, he turns it around. The injuries were a big part of it, and they go, let's say they even overshoot the best case and go 6-6 this year, and then go, 8-4 next year, and then all of a sudden they're 9-3. After about 4 years, he's turned it around. You can actually see they're doing well. I'm not saying this will happen. I hope it doesn't because it's IU, but if that happens, does that make him immutable to those outside universities coming to him and saying, "Hey, we can"?
I would never say no, because if he leads this Indiana team to an 8-4 next year, I mean, or anything like that.
Or 7-5, but they beat Ohio State, or something, where you can see the bright spots of his coaching.
Some bigger schools would come knocking on the door, and they would be able to offer a lot more money than what Indiana can. So I wouldn't ever say never, but like, as much as, I mean, every coach says this is my dream job. Like Tom Allen,
but like you can tell it's his. That's
genuine.
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is, why go after a different job? I mean, if you're living your dream job and as long as you're happy there, does it matter? And I don't know. I'm not raising any question. I'm not saying that he's leaving.
Right.
I'm
no,
just saying,
I know.
That just popped into my head was, if I'm working my dream job, do I listen? I mean, I guess you'd be silly not to listen to at least.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like you always be nuanced, but like,
right.
Yeah, at some point you just got to look at it and say,
Hey,
well,
you
this
know
is where
what?
my
You
heart
can
is.
still buy
my
me
home
dinner.
is.
Sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
And make it a good one.
Yeah, steak, medium rare.
Yeah.
Are you a medium rare guy, Sam?
I am a medium rare on the medium side. I would I order it medium, closer
You're
to medium
rare. Okay.
You know, I like it a medium rare, but I like it a little bit further cooked than actual medium rare temperature.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very specific.
Well, it's easy because honestly, that's my prime spot. That's my red hot spot. Like that's my favorite, but I can go either side of it and be okay.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah, it just depends on the cut of meat too.
Wow, look at this.
But it's got to be steak.
All right, let's go head to the second quarter.
You know what? We're still on the food spot, and I cut you off. I know I did, but it was kind of intentional because you know what angers me is going to a place, a burger joint, or even a steakhouse where they sell burgers, and they've got the portobello mushroom burger because it's just a cap. No. Call that a mushroom sandwich. Don't call it a portobello burger. Okay, it's a mushroom sandwich. Okay.
It's fair enough. you know what was popping in my mind whenever you talk meat temperatures or steaks, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of the scene from King of the Hill. Do you ever remember that where Hank? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I watched King of the Hill, but I don't know if I know the episode you're talking about.
Where the dad's grilling and Bobby comes out and yeah, and he's like kind of showing him the things on the grill, Bobby, and going through it. And Bobby goes, well, what if somebody asks for their steaks well done? And he goes, then we ask them politely yet firmly to leave. And I think
that
of
is
that
absolutely correct. Every time my mother-in-law orders it well done, and I look at her and just shake. I just look at her and go, and just shake my head. And my father-in-law laughs because he's like exactly like me on meat preference, and and he just laughs because I will not let her. You're killing me. You're killing. Why you having steak then?
Just eat a shoe.
Yeah,
just eat a shoe.
Or you know what? Get chicken. You know, that's supposed to be cooked all the way through. Okay, that's supposed to be well done.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, great. Anyways, I've hijacked quarter two with a little bit of overtime quarter one.
I'm gonna change things up a little bit from what our rundown is here, Sam. And real quick before we close out the first half, I want to go to what we had planned for later in the show here. Some more, as I think it's labeled on the script, NIL mess with NCAA.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes. So we're on the same page.
So we're flipping that one to here and going with the other side. Are we just flipping the two?
On the other side, yes.
On the other side. Okay.
So with the NIL stuff, and we've been going through this quite a bit. And we won't beat the dead horse. Like we talked pretty extensive last week, but I do think it's important to bring up that the NCAA, who is talked about now, kind of like, oh, this is a problem, and it's like, yeah, we all kind of saw this coming.
We told you that 4 years ago.
If you took action way before, it'd be different. Now the NCAA is trying to take action. They offer guidelines where boosters in collectives cannot put forth deals for student athletes. And of course, the question is, how do you enforce that when it's already happening now? Like how does this play out? And nobody really seems to quite have that answer yet. I'm not sure that it's feasible because at this point, these people that see the opportunity that they can buy players and put them on their favorite team are sitting there saying
football or basketball.
They're saying, I'll find another way. So like this is a thing no matter what. This is just too little too late from the NCAA. It feels like a last ditch effort to say, well, shucks, we tried. Like I don't see this actually holding any kind of substance, what this came out.
They're actually even trying to make it retroactive.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? I am so angry. And you know what? It takes me back every time that we bring it up, because you know what? Every time they do something, it just makes them look even more silly than what they originally did. And I am shocked because I didn't think they could get dumber looking. You're going to go back when you gave him wide open wood, do whatever you want. And we're going to then say, oh, now we're going to retroactively punish you. Oh my good Lord. Come on.
And I tell you what, too, and like I said, because we've talked about this pretty extensive, and we'll talk about it in different flavors throughout the summer, because it's going to continue to be a story. But what I will offer to the table here is, not too long ago, I talked with the AFCA executive director, the American Football Coaches Association executive director, Todd Berry, and we were talking a little bit about NIL and some of the different things going on. And he offered up 2 stories or incidents that he's hearing from coaches, because he represents all the coaches in football and kind of the things that they're concerned with or trying to put into effect. Like right now, they're trying to, with the transfer portal, create 2 windows of dates where student athletes can transfer. And the idea is to help with roster management and the chaos this is. And I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but it also helps student athletes. And he goes, because we're finding out a lot of the student athletes, like a quarterback will be in the transfer portal, and he doesn't know what the actual team's going to look like, because at any time somebody can come in. A Caleb Williams can come take his spot in August. Like, it would help the student athletes as well to know where to go. So it's mutually beneficial between coaches and student athletes. Hopefully that passes. Anyway, the 2 horror stories. You ready for these, Sam?
Oh, good Lord. I can't wait.
He heard from one of the coaches. He had a player come into his office. I think it was a quarterback. And the player goes, "Coach, I got a problem I want to talk with you about." And the coach, just from the vibe of it, was like, is this a class thing? Is it a social thing? Maybe a girlfriend thing? Like, what's going on here? And he goes, "Well, I have this NIL deal, and the corporation, the partner, wants me to transfer to a bigger market. They want me to leave here and go to a bigger market so that it helps more with the sponsorship." And he goes, "And coach, I don't want to leave. How do I get out of this deal?" So that's a thing. Number 2, a coach recently had somebody come into his office, and it was a pretty big alum, pretty steep pockets. And they were chatting, and the alum had kind of asked, "Well, on the schedule this year, what are some of the big games you're kind of worried about?" And the coach kind of goes, "Well, with this team, so on and so forth. Those will be tough ones." And he goes, "Who are some of the top players on those teams?" And the coach is still kind of naive to what's going on. He's like, Joe Smith is all conference. This guy is all American. Like, there's some pretty good guys. And the coach kind of sat there and he goes, "Why are you asking?" And the booster goes, "Well, I'm going to buy those players. That way we don't have to play them." Welcome to college sports in 2022.
And you know what? I blame the NCAA for not heading this off at the pass. You knew about this coming down the road 4 years ago.
Yep. Even longer. You knew this was an eventuality.
But that's when California said in 2023.
Correct. Yes.
Players will be, or athletes at universities will be able to make money. And what is going on? You knew about this, and now you are letting it do this.
Yep.
And we have to listen to that. You could have had, now we would still have horror stories. I mean, Blue Chips,
they always exist.
Blue Chips, the movie, was an accurate, like, there might have been Hollywood license, creative license taken, but that stuff happens.
Yep.
And that's going to be a horror story, or a thrilling movie, or whatever. It's going to happen. But if you could have head off, seriously, there's a company trying to get a kid to transfer from a place that he is extremely happy with because of the money they're paying him.
Yep.
Ridiculous. That could have been stopped.
Yep.
This is the NCAA's fault, and now they're trying to put the toothpaste back into the tube, like you said last week.
Yeah,
I'm angry.
Dalton. I was gonna say I could see just the disbelief, and it's the appropriate reaction. But I thought this was informative and helpful, maybe for some listeners that are currently tuned in to know this is what's happening.
I am for those players to be able to make money. I am absolutely for that. But you're raping college sports, period. And it's the stinking organization that everybody's under the umbrella that's doing it to them. Knock it off, or let the schools leave and do their own thing.
Which might be the eventuality at some point.
And this is the downfall.
Yep.
That they couldn't foresee 4+ years ago that this was going to happen and did nothing to let it to keep it from going to where it is now.
So these stories are currently taking place, and the NCAA is trying to, at the same time, retroactively take this all back.
Joke.
We'll see how this all plays out. No, I get
that is a stinking joke. Come on, killing me.
Let's go to halftime. We'll let Sam decompress and come back with a little bit more of a brighter note in the second half.
I'm gonna go drink vodka. You are listening to Big 10 Plus 4, hosted on Anchor and StreamYard.
Hey, this is Russ.
This is Kyle.
This is Michelle.
From the Infectious Groove Podcast. Join us every Monday for the most fun you can have with a music podcast. The Infectious Groove Podcast uses a positive and fun approach as we take time every week to share our jammy jams, then dig into a thought-provoking topic discussing all decades and genres of music. You can find the Infectious Groove Podcast on all major podcast platforms, or you can head to infectiousgroovepodcast.com to find us there and subscribe. We might have a controversial opinion here or there, but we always have fun with it.
Oh, I'm sure I'll say something dumb.
Subscribe to the Infectious Groove Podcast, part of the OddPods Media Network.
Hi, I'm Tina Jaramillo.
And I'm Hillary Doherty.
And we host the Muck Podcast, where we discuss the dark and sometimes weird true stories in American politics.
Hey, Tina, did you know that Elvis crashed the Nixon White House for the sole purpose of getting a DEA badge, and it worked?
What? Or how a gun control advocate senator out of California engaged in gun trafficking with notorious gang leader Shrimp Boy?
Shrimp Boy, I remember him. Okay, so, we cover all of that and more from maladies, madness, mischief, and murder in U.S. politics.
And we also host a bi-weekly interview segment called Lil Muck.
We interview politicians, journalists, activists, and others who share their experiences in politics.
Find the Muck Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and check us out on social media at the Muck Podcast.
Time for a quarter. Sam, you feel any better?
A
little bit. Okay. So we'll cheer up a little bit. Okay. We're going to go social media here with a couple of different things. And before we get to our social media, this had me thinking, because I saw this tweeted out, and I want to pull up the guy's name so I can give him credit. At Powell Analytics is who's been tweeting out a lot of different things just to get fans engaged here in the last week or so. And I want to pose one to you, Sam. One of the questions was, what is the best player on your favorite team all time? That's the first name for basketball yet. Well, and there's another SS, Scott Skiles.
Or Scott. Oh, wow. Those are two different types of players, but yet both could be the more well-known.
And you can throw in I don't because he left after 1 year. I don't think he's quite the same level in terms of legacy as Steve Smith and Scott Skiles, but Jaren Jackson Jr., who's in the middle of the NBA playoffs right now.
He's got
that's three letters. He's out. But for basketball, I think that's where you go. For football, I think you go with, there's two in mind. Darqueze Dennard, who was one of the best cornerbacks in the country back in 2013 and part of that defense, or Connor Cook, who of course helped win a lot of big games, Big Ten title at Michigan State. So 2 Big Ten titles. But regardless, that's where I kind of land with Michigan State. Do you have any Boilermakers yet?
I do.
Okay.
Honestly, and he goes back to the like late 80s. And he wasn't, I think he might have been an all-conference center, but Steve Scheffler. He played for Purdue.
Yeah.
And he was a really he was, if you're familiar, if anybody is familiar with Brian Cardinal with Purdue. Steve Scheffler was like the pre-Brian Cardinal, you know, the all over the place, wore, you know, not knee braces, but pads on his knees because he was always on the floor. You know, I mean, he was all over the place. And I think he was in like 88, 89, maybe 90.
Yep.
But yeah, really, really good center for Purdue.
He and my good friend Matt Stegenga, who played at Michigan State in the late 80s, early 90s. They're both from Grand Rapids. So Stegs and Scheffler had quite a few different head-to-head matchups.
Are they friends? Or are they just acquaintances type thing?
I think acquaintances, but they enjoy each other. And Matt Stegenga, by the way, was a small forward and left Michigan State as the all-time leading shot blocker in Spartan basketball history when he left. Now, of course, nowadays there's a lot more.
Right.
But he always would tell a story how from high school to college, he would, like, especially at Michigan State, he would use Mike Poplawski's shoulders. They're the center, jump off his back and block a shot from Scheffler, and they would just go back and forth with each other, having a little bit of fun because a lot of people couldn't block Scheffler's shot, but Steggs was one of the guys who could, and those two Grand Rapids natives would have a lot of fun with that back and forth.
Yeah, but yeah, he would be, in my mind, the best player that has the same initial that I can think of. I'm sure I'm missing somebody.
Well, I was trying to quickly browse through, and I couldn't come up with any off the top of my head for Purdue. Do you have any football ones?
No, not off the top of my head. I'm thinking, and no. Seth Morales is not even close. No. Not that I'm thinking, and you know what'll happen is as soon as we sign off, I'll remember one.
Dang it!
I will.
Wish I would have said that.
I will text you that.
Okay, so another one that at Powell Analytics tweeted out that I wanted to discuss with you. Favorite game-winning play as a fan that you've ever seen. Now, I imagine what Sam's actually doesn't deal with Purdue, but I'm going to ask him for the Purdue one. I have to imagine which one.
Do you know which one it is?
It's got to be 2016, the ground out to win the World Series for the Cubs, right?
Oh, we're talking about. I was just thinking college sports.
Well, I said I imagine your ultimate one is that.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Chris Bryant's foot slipping as he's throwing to first. Yes, that's the image that comes to my head. And then
for Purdue, it's got to be a Drew Brees touchdown pass for football back in 2000, right? That long pelt up. I can't remember who they played though.
Ohio State.
Okay.
At Purdue. Purdue had just turned the ball over. Breeze had just gotten sacked and fumbled a strip sack, and Ohio State recovered it like on the 3 and went in and scored a touchdown. And 2 plays later, Breeze, I think it was Sutherland, but I'm not 100% sure.
I couldn't remember. I'm going to look it up. Hang on.
68-yard touchdown pass to take the lead. And then Purdue forced, I believe, intercepted Ohio State to seal it up after that.
Sutherland. Yep.
I thought it was Vinny. Yeah. He got past the safety and was wide open. And and I was there for that. I was in Ross-Ade for it. And, I went to a Purdue Ohio State game wearing all orange shirt and shorts.
Why?
I know that was weird. I know it was weird, but and you know what? My mom asked me that same question.
Did you just finish deer hunting and you?
No,
just
you want to
climbed in
no,
Ross
no. Honestly, you want to know why? And I honestly I don't know that I just said because this is what I wore. But my ultimate thing is if there was a newspaper shot of the crowd,
You wanted to see yourself?
I would stand out. And believe it or not, there was a shot from on the front of the Fort Wayne newspaper of Drew Brees on the field facing the end zone that we were sitting in, and you could see a faint orange mark in the crowd.
I was gonna say, hell, back in your day, everything was black and white anyway.
Yeah,
right.
Right. Newspapers didn't have color pictures at that point, but that was only about 20 years ago that happened, though.
I just wanted to make a joke.
So and we sat in the middle of the Ohio State section. Of course we did. And these gentlemen who had probably imbibed in some activities prior to the game, as did I, they kept giving me crap because I did have a Purdue hat on. So I did, and they kept just being obnoxious Ohio State fans. And Breeze threw that touchdown pass. I stood up on my seat and turned at them and yelled words that cannot be repeated right now at them, and they got up, hung their head, got up, and walked away because the game was over.
What a memory of this iconic play.
Now, that's not my all-time, like, oh my goodness, college highlight, though, that I
What's
saw.
that?
I saw Cordell Stewart in the big house. Well, I wasn't there, but I saw it on TV. Cordell Stewart throw the 85-yard touchdown pass
against
the
Michigan?
Hail Mary against Michigan. I think it was only like 70, but yeah, he threw it a mile, and I believe it was Brian Westbrook that caught it. It was Westbrook, but I think it was
Westbrook.
So I saw that on TV, and Keith Jackson going ballistic that it got caught and everything. That was iconic.
So to me, the maybe even more jaw-dropping game-ending play does involve Michigan State, and it happened the year before I got there, but it's the trouble with the snap. You're playing in Ann Arbor, number 12 versus number 7, and you get to the end of the game, 10 seconds are left, and Blake O'Neal drops the ball. Jalen Watts-Jackson picks it up, runs it into the end zone for the win, ends up like dislocating or breaking his hip in the end zone.
He had a Bo Jackson style injury, didn't he? Where the hip actually pulled out of the joint socket and then went back in.
I'm not sure, but he did come back to play again. So
did he? Okay,
it can't be quite Bo Jackson-esque.
Well, I think it resembled maybe that.
Yeah, that might be fair.
Like it started to come out or something, but it wasn't to the extent as Bo's.
But Michigan, all they had to do was just punt the ball.
Right.
I mean, that was one of the most amazing finishes. That and the kick six between Bama and Auburn were the most like unpredictable finishes I've ever seen in college football.
I didn't see the kick six though.
Well,
I know exactly where I was when it happened, but I didn't see it.
Same here. So I was at a high school basketball game. I was a freshman in college. No kidding. Were we at the same game?
No.
Oh, okay. But
I was at Garrett.
Was it Eastside versus Garrett though?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Yeah, I can't remember who was playing, but we both went to Eastside High School, of course, and I was a freshman in college, so I was coming back. I had a day off from basketball and school and everything else, and I wanted to see some of my friends play, so I came back and visited, and I was following with the Iron Bowl game, following the score, and I keep refreshing, trying to see what happens in this final moment, and all of a sudden the score flops where it says Auburn wins the game against Bama, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, that's really a typo at this time.
Yeah, that's horrible. You dropped the ball, ESPN.
Yeah, I did. I dropped my phone and I'm like, unbelievable for you guys to be off your game in this moment. Bama, I need to know if they made the field goal or not. And then I'm going to Twitter and they're like,
no, they didn't.
Oh my God. And I'm like, what? So that's how I found out.
I was at at the time we had a foreign exchange student, and he played varsity basketball. So I was the interpreter. According to the state of Indiana, I wasn't part of the coaching staff, but I was allowed to be an interpreter. So I got to go to practices. I sat on the bench with the team.
What other languages do you speak?
I don't.
That's kind of hard to be an interpreter.
Our Italian spoke English, but he didn't always understand certain terms. So what I had to do is I had to translate the coach's terms into something that he would better understand.
Got it.
So, basically it was one of those, and it wasn't done in a mean way, but I don't have time to slow it down for him. So I need somebody there to be able to do it.
Yep.
And so that's what I was. So I was considered the interpreter, but it was the aspect of me being able to dedicate time just to him so he could understand what was going on, and get that translation more Italian English rather than, Indiana English.
Right.
So we were in the locker room getting ready to go out to the floor. And I pulled it up and I saw, oh, it's a tie game and 3 seconds left or whatever. And Alabama's kicking the field goal. Put it in my pocket because the coach was saying something. He stopped. He went into his office right before we went out. I pulled my phone out and it said, Auburn had won. And I'm like, so I went into the box score, the play-by-play, and I'm like, no way. So I told one of the other coaches, he goes, you're lying. I'm like, no. So yeah, I was also at a high school basketball game in the same county probably as you.
Yeah, probably. How bizarre is that? But this was a lot of fun, by the way. We'll have to do this with basketball next week.
Yeah.
We'll have some fun there.
I don't know that I don't know that I've got an incident that I was at
for basketball.
Right.
You got a week to think on one, Sam.
Okay, I'll make one up.
There you go. Hey, stories are stories, even if they're not true.
That's right.
Real quick before we head to the fourth quarter, though, we do have a social media question this week.
We do. I don't
there.
Which state that has multiple Big Ten programs is the best? I don't have the options on a little flag for you, but the options are Indiana, which is IU and Purdue, Michigan, which is Michigan and Michigan State, and Illinois, which is, and some people don't realize this, and because sometimes I even forget, Northwestern is in Illinois.
Chicago's team.
Yeah. So they replaced the University of Chicago when the University of Chicago got out of the Big Ten. Northwestern came in as the Chicago University. And also, of course, the Illini there in Champaign. Those are the three options. I'd say if you don't see your option, comment below, but there are no other states in the Big Ten that have multiple programs. So you only have three choices.
Yep.
But that was kind of another reason why I don't have that Twitter poll up yet. It will be as soon as we're done here.
Okay, good enough. But it should be interesting. I think it's really more of a 2-horse race between Indiana and Michigan. I doubt Illinois gets a lot of love on this, but I'm curious to see who wins out of Indiana and Michigan. So we'll find out. It just
depends on who votes.
Yeah, it's kind of true. I'm sure we have different answers. Maybe we'll go over that next week.
I think the state of Purdue is much better. Yes.
All right, let's head to the fourth quarter.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Through curve.
Yeah, the curveball slider in the.
All right, now we're ready for the fourth quarter. Of course, this is the part of the show where we bring our own headlines to the table, and we start off with the Sam Sentinel as Sam goes jumbo on your screen.
Yeah, and I'm realizing that there's. I'm in the wrong. It is it seems like it's a Monday, even though it's not even close to a Monday.
We haven't brought this up yet. It is Friday the 13th, so
that's okay. I feel so much better now. I really do, because I was like, man, what is wrong with me? It's Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm.
I'm always here to give out excuses, so let me know if you ever need.
Whenever we need. Okay, so from the Sam Sentinel, I'm going to talk about what is it? Keevon Thibodeaux, correct?
Yep.
Is it
Thibodeaux?
Is it Thibodeaux or okay? See, English
It's
is
spelled Thibodeaux, but it's
yeah.
Thibodeaux.
Well, and I do believe the old coach of the Bulls, Tom Thibodeaux.
Tom Thibodeaux.
Is it? And it's Thibodeaux, not Thibodeaux.
Yep.
But it's spelled roughly the same way.
Correct. But Keevon is Thibodeaux. Yeah,
Keevon
gotta have fun with that.
Is Thibodeaux.
And this is why you had to be an interpreter. This is
exactly. So Keevon Thibodeaux paid Giants kicker Graham Gano $50,000 for number 5 on the Giants. So Thibodeaux will be wearing number 5 for the G-men starting next year. He paid $50,000 to Graham Gano for this. You've heard a lot of this. I mean, things like that. Like Jason Hayward, when he came to the Cubs, he wanted 22. So he had to pay the player that had it. Whatever. I don't even remember. I think he bought him a watch and maybe gave him $10,000 or something like that. And so he got number 22. This happens all the time. It does. But the reason why I bring this up is Graham Gano did not take the $50,000, put it in his pocket, Dalton. He went and donated it to the charity of Puppies Behind Bars, which provides service dogs for wounded war veterans and first responders. And yeah, and what I think is great is Thibodeaux. Probably, do I know whether or not he knew this? But I did see a tweet that Graham Gano said, we've been talking about this. We've had this agreement for like weeks, or they were talking, or maybe from the draft, maybe a couple of weeks or whatever, and they just announced it. But the fact that they and like I said, I don't know if Thibodeaux knew what the money was going for, so that's why maybe he doubled it or said, yeah, let's do $50,000, or if that was completely Graham Gano's thing. But that what an awesome move from a guy who kicks a ball for a living, and he's making a donation to a charity that does great things. Service dogs are extremely huge. I actually have 3 dogs, but they are consolation. When I'm not feeling like my ever chipper self, like I am every Big 10+4, but they sense that. They come and sit right next to me, or in Addison's way, she'll lay on top of me on my lap. She knows. So service dogs do great things, and for these first responders and war veterans to get a service dog and Graham Gano to donate to it, awesome to hear and to be able to read. So, and hopefully Keevon Thibodeaux, ponied in some more extra cash in there just to make it an even better story. So that's the Sam Sentinel, Dalton.
That's something that really kind of tickles the heartstrings. That's
it tugs on you because you're like, look, they're not all prima donnas, they're not always. That $50,000 could have taken his family on a vacation and maybe even bought a car or whatever, but instead he did what he did with it. Great job.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
For the Dalton Daily, I want to tip my cap. I still have the bucket hat, but I'll use a ball cap because it seems more appropriate. Dalton Daily little
there graphic.
It is. Hey, there we go. So I'll rewind. For the Dalton Daily, I want to tip my cap. Michigan State head softball coach Jackie Joseph had been leading the dugout for the last 29 years as the head coach in East Lansing. She just recently, yesterday, decided to step down as head coach at Michigan State after 29 years. She was the 3rd longest tenured head coach in Big Ten softball She's the winningest coach in Michigan State softball history. She won more than 750 games leading the green and white. As a head coach altogether, she won 889, nearly coached a couple thousand games. So she's been doing this for a very long time. She led Michigan State to 4 NCAA regional appearances. She won a Big Ten tourney title back in 2004 with Jessica Beach. She's done a lot of different things during the 29 years. In terms of those successful accomplishments. But the greatest thing about Jackie, and if you haven't met Jackie, haven't had that privilege yet, she is quite honestly one of the most honest people I've ever come across, not really just with sports and media and coverage, but she is just completely an honest person. And it makes it so great to deal with her on a fairly normal daily basis. Because Sam, you watch all these different interviews and press conferences from coaches, and you get a lot of coach speak. You don't really get to discover the genuine self. Jackie, she is out there. I mean, she and not like in a crazy way, but like she is just herself. She's authentic as a person can be. And that is something that I will always cherish. Honestly, for the next however long I end up doing sports media in whatever fashion for the next half century or whatever it is, I will always remember my time with Jackie Joseph just because of how honest she is. And it's made it such a delight to get to know Jackie throughout the years. So Jackie Joseph, congratulations on your 29 years at Michigan State as the head softball coach. Can't wait to see what's next as she steps down and steps into a role in sport administration at Michigan State. So
nice.
She'll still be around. But I wanted to give the proper respect and credit to a long, long career, 3 decades worth with Jackie Joseph. So congratulations.
Yeah. What? 29 years.
You believe that?
I haven't done anything for 29 years except for live a little bit longer than that.
I'm not even 29 years old.
So, I mean, that impressive. I guess, Dalton, believe it or not, I did the calculation. I'm in like my 21st year of coaching in some capacity.
Really?
Yeah.
So soon enough, I'll tip my cap to you. How's that?
If I retire, I guess. I've got a 6-year-old, remember?
So you got a ways to go.
Yeah, I've got a ways. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. And, by then, I'll have to have my walker going up, onto the field. And well, come on, kids.
I envision coaching youth sports as one of the more bigger frustrations that somebody can have in their life. Do you not experience it that way?
There's a reason why I have not coached a team younger than 10 to 12 or 12 to like 14-year-olds. Like that's the lowest I've gone. Not that I have no patience, but I have a certain expectation in my head as a coach that these kids should. I love teaching basics in the aspect of you already know how to put your glove on, and
right.
So I mean, it's not one of those that. Yeah, there's also a reason why I'm a high school teacher and not an elementary teacher. And it's because I know I don't have the tolerance, or my frustration level gets going really quickly. And I don't want to yell at 5-year-olds and have them crying. Yeah. Have you seen Kindergarten Cop?
Yes.
That first day where he makes everybody cry. That's me. So there's a reason why I teach in the high school level instead of in the elementary level.
Yeah, as somebody who doesn't have kids, the idea of coaching them at that young of an age seems just a little painful.
And if the day comes that you end up coaching your child on a team, know that he or she will not listen to a word you say, and the next coach next to you will say the exact same thing you did, and then they'll listen to them, not you. When you say it, you're criticizing. When they say it, they're coaching.
So excited for all of what future has to offer. All right, before we close up and get out of here, Sam, where can everybody find us?
Well, it used to be above us. Now it's below us. You can find the different ways to get a hold of us on Facebook, Big 10 plus 4, on Twitter, Big 10 plus 4, spell out plus, not the symbol, spell it out. Okay. Then on the other side of the live bubble, there is oddpodsmedia.com. That's a website where you can find all of our stuff, and then as well as any of the OddPods media shows that are also in the network with us there. Thank you to ASAP. You can find us streaming on ASAP, which is what we're doing right now, believe it or not.
Look at that.
Yeah. You told your mama you'd be on TV, right? I'm gonna be on TV, mama.
Oh shoot! So yeah, make sure you check us out. Of course, we'll join you each week. But
you can also find us anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Just keep expanding it. No. I just so many
Pretty
platforms.
Soon I'm
so
gonna
many
need my own segment just to say how you can get all.
Yeah, I know.
Look Big 10+4 up. How about that?
Yeah, just about anywhere.
That's right.
Well, that'll do it for us from Big 10+4 for this week. That's Sam Sprunger. I'm Dalton Scheffler. Until next week, take care.
See ya.